Before Iran existed, there was Persia, a name that made emperors tremble across continents. A land where Zagros mountains rise like sentinels guarding secrets older than memory. Rivers carved valleys where first cities learned to write laws on tablets under the sun. This is where civilization was born, where empires rose from dust and touched the sky. This place was the heart of the known world for 3,000 years of unbroken glory. From these plateaus and valleys, one civilization would rise, fall, and rise like a phoenix. Stay with us through this journey, 1,000 years of Iran in just 15 epic minutes. This is the story of dynasties, wars, and one nation that refused to disappear from history. One land that survived conquest, fire, and foreign rule to stand defiant and proud today. In the year 1000 AD, Persia thrived under the iron rule of the powerful Ghaznavid Empire. Sultan Mahmud commanded vast armies from the Afghan highlands to the Indian subcontinent. His royal treasury overflowed with gold from conquered temples and prosperous trading cities. Persian was the language of power, of exquisite poetry and scientific discovery across lands. Ferdowsi completed the Shahnameh that year, 60,000 verses preserving the nation's soul. This epic preserved myths of ancient kings and the pre-Islamic glory that defined Old Persia. It was defiance in poetry, a refusal to let the past be forgotten by foreign conquerors. But empires built on conquest rarely last beyond their founding generation in this harsh land. The Seljuk Turks swept from Asian steppes like a sandstorm blotting out the burning sun. By 1040, they controlled Persia through brutal warfare, replacing one empire with another fast. Yet Persia did what it always does. It absorbed conquerors like water into thirsty desert sand. Within one generation, the Seljuks became Persian in culture, language, and artistic spirit. They patronized poets, built mosques, and governed using Persian bureaucratic old traditions. The conquerors had been conquered by the culture they thought they had defeated in battle. Isfahan became their jewel, a city of turquoise domes that seemed to glow from deep within. Intricate tilework covered surfaces in geometric patterns that spoke of mathematical perfection. Scholars debated astronomy, while physicians wrote medical texts for future generations to study. Omar Khayyam calculated the solar year with precision that still astonishes modern astronomers. The bazaars smelled of cardamom and saffron, of leather tanned in traditional dusty workshops. Metalworkers hammered copper into thin vessels that rang like bells when gently struck. Calligraphers transformed sacred words into visual beauty transcending language itself entirely. Then came the Mongols in 1219, and the world ended in fire and blood and harsh screaming. Genghis Khan's armies descended like a plague sent by angry gods to punish all humanity. Entire cities were erased from existence. Populations slaughtered down to the very last child. Libraries holding centuries of knowledge burned for weeks, smoke visible for 100 miles. Nishapur, once home to hundreds of thousands, became nothing but a field of skulls and ash. The population fell by 90% in a single, brutal generation of systematic genocide. Fields went unplanted, and cities stood empty, while wolves howled in abandoned marketplaces. The land went silent, and smoke rose from ruins where elaborate gardens once bloomed. But Persia refused to die when death came calling with Mongol swords and flaming arrows. From ashes, a new dynasty emerged, the Ilkhanate led by Mongol Khans ruling Persian lands. Like the Seljuks, they became Persian in everything but name and blood within a few decades. They rebuilt shattered cities using Persian architects who still remembered the old ways. They restored irrigation canals, bringing water and life back to the desert that had gone dry. By 1300, Tabriz had risen as a world capital of commerce and culture, thriving once again. Merchants from Venice, from China, from India, filled its sprawling bazaars with goods. Persia had survived its apocalypse and become a vital crossroads of the world once more. But peace never lasts in a land at the crossroads of empires and raw, ambitious conquest. Timur the Lame arrived in 1380 with another army, bringing yet another wave of destruction. Isfahan fell after brave resistance, its defenders slaughtered without any mercy shown. Skulls were stacked into pyramids as warnings to other cities, considering any form of defiance. Yet, even Timur could not kill Persia, though he tried with all his brutal might. His descendants built Samarkand with Persian architects, bringing ancient aesthetic traditions. The 15th century brought the Safavid dynasty, rising from Azerbaijan to unite all lands. In 1501, Shah Ismail made a choice that would define Iran for the next 5 centuries. He declared Shia Islam the state religion, not just theology but deliberate identity building. Persia would be different from Sunni neighbors to the west and to the distant Far East. Under Shah Abbas, Isfahan became the most beautiful city on all of Earth travelers had seen. The Naqsh-e-Jahan Square, a masterpiece of urban planning Europeans could only dream of. The Shah Mosque, with its double-shelled domes, seemed to float above Earth, defying gravity. Half the world, they called it. Half the world captured in one extraordinary, majestic city. The bazaar hummed with life from dawn until long after darkness fell each single night. Carpets woven with precision looked like oil paintings when hung on palace walls for all. Metalworkers hammered silver into intricate patterns that told ancient stories without words. The scent of rosewater and saffron hung in the air like invisible, sweet perfume drifting. This was the Persia the world remembers, wealthy and cultured and powerful at its peak. But glory attracts enemies from every direction, like moths drawn to a bright, burning flame. The Ottomans pressed from the west, while the Uzbeks raided from the east, stealing everything. The Safavids held them off for 2 centuries, but even the greatest empires grow weary. By 1722, Afghan forces captured Isfahan after a siege that slowly starved the great city. Persia fragmented into warring territories, each controlled by a different, ambitious warlord. Nader Shah rose from chaos, a military genius who conquered half of all known Asia. He marched into India and looted Delhi, bringing back the magnificent, legendary Peacock Throne. But when he died in 1747, assassinated by his officers, all the fragments flew apart again. Persia was bleeding from 1,000 wounds, unable to unite or heal itself at all. The Qajar dynasty took control in 1794, imposing order through ruthless, brutal military force. They moved the capital to Tehran, a dusty provincial town that would slowly grow into a city. But the Qajars faced a new threat: European imperialism backed by industrial technology. Russia wanted northern territories for warm water ports and strategic depth against rivals. Britain wanted the south to protect the route to India, the jewel of their vast empire. Persia became a chessboard where European powers played their great game without consent. The 19th century was a long, humiliating era of lost sovereignty and forced losses. Persia lost wars to Russia and surrendered vast territories in the Caucasus Mountains forever. European advisors dictated policy, while locals seethed with resentment and helpless rage. Foreign companies controlled tobacco, oil, telegraph, every industry that mattered then. In 1906, Persia erupted, and the constitutional revolution forced the weak Shah to accept reforms. It was a moment of hope, Persia reaching for modernity on its own proud, independent terms. But foreign powers crushed the dream before it could take root and flourish anywhere. Russia and Britain divided Persia into spheres of influence as if the country didn't exist. Then came oil in 1908, and everything changed forever in ways no one could have predicted. British prospectors struck black gold in Kyrgyzstan's scorching deserts in the southwest. Persia sat atop one of the world's largest petroleum reserves, enough to power empires. But wealth flowed to London, not Tehran, in an arrangement of breathtaking, deliberate injustice. The Anglo-Persian Oil Company, later called BP, took 90% of profits. World War I brought chaos to an unstable land, struggling to survive modern, brutal pressures. Russian, British, and Ottoman armies fought across Persian soil, as if it were an empty field. Famine killed 2 million civilians who starved while foreign armies requisitioned their food. The government collapsed, unable to protect its own people from starvation and death. From rubble, military officer Reza Khan seized power through determination and ruthless ambition. In 1925, he crowned himself Shah and changed the country's official name to Iran, a name from ancient times, reclaiming an identity that predated Islam itself by centuries. Reza Shah modernized Iran with ruthless efficiency that brooked absolutely no opposition. He built railways connecting provinces for the first time in the nation's turbulent history. He paved roads, opened schools and universities, teaching Western modern cutting-edge knowledge. He banned the traditional veil and forced Western dress codes on a reluctant conservative nation. Iran was dragged into the 20th century, whether conservative elements liked it or not. During World War II, Britain and Russia invaded Iran to secure oil for their war effort. They forced Reza Shah to abdicate and installed his young son Mohammad Reza Pahlavi as ruler. The new Shah was young, uncertain, utterly dependent on foreign powers for his survival. In 1951, Prime Minister Mossadegh nationalized Iran's oil industry in a bold, democratic move. The people celebrated wildly, in streets believing their wealth would finally belong to themselves. But in 1953, British intelligence and the CIA orchestrated a coup overthrowing democracy. Mossadegh was arrested and imprisoned while the Shah returned to power as an authoritarian puppet. The Shah's Iran became a bizarre paradox that confused outside observers visiting the country. Tehran glittered with skyscrapers and nightclubs where alcohol flowed freely against law. Women wore miniskirts and studied engineering at universities, becoming doctors, lawyers, professors. Iran possessed the Middle East's most powerful military, armed with the latest American arms. But underneath the modern surface, resentment festered like an infected wound that wouldn't heal. The secret police, Savak, tortured political dissidents in underground prisons using horrific ways. The wealth gap widened into an unbridgeable chasm between the rich and the desperately poor. People felt their culture slipping away, replaced by American consumerism and foreign values. By the 1970s, Iran had become a pressure cooker with the safety valve welded shut. The Shah celebrated 2,500 years of monarchy with a lavish party at Persepolis in the desert. Foreign dignitaries ate caviar while millions of Iranians lived in poverty without basic needs. Religious leaders, intellectuals, workers, students, everyone had a real, legitimate grievance. In 1979, revolution exploded across Iran like a volcano building pressure for many decades. Millions filled streets of every major city demanding the Shah's immediate, complete overthrow. Ayatollah Khomeini, exiled in France, became the voice of opposition through smuggled tapes. The Shah fled the country in disgrace, while Khomeini returned to delirious, celebrating crowds. The Islamic Republic of Iran was born in chaos and blood and desperate hope for change. The revolution devoured its children with horrifying speed that shocked even the active fighters. Leftists, who fought alongside Islamists, were executed without trial in revolutionary courts. Liberals wanting democracy were imprisoned or killed, while minorities seeking autonomy fell. Women were forced back into hijab by law and pressure, while Western culture was banned. Iran closed itself from the world it had culturally dominated for many long centuries. Then came 8 years of war that nearly broke the nation in half down the middle. In 1980, Saddam Hussein's Iraq invaded hoping to seize oil territory, while Iran appeared weak. The war lasted 8 brutal years of static fronts and human wave attacks that got nothing. 1 million died in trenches and minefields while chemical weapons were used against soldiers. Child soldiers were sent to clear minefields with their bodies, while the horror was unspeakable. Today, Iran is a nation of contradictions, confusing the world and even confusing itself. Tehran is home to 9 million people, a sprawling, traffic-choked megalopolis choking on smog. Ancient mosques stand beside modern apartment blocks, in jarring architectural contrast everywhere. Young Iranians navigate between tradition and modernity, religious restriction and personal dreams. It gave humanity poetry, mathematics, gardens, and architectural marvels inspiring awe in all. It has been conquered, burned, occupied, sanctioned, isolated throughout its long, turbulent history. Yet it endures, refusing to disappear or become irrelevant despite every obstacle thrown at it. Persia taught the world that empires rise and fall like tides, but culture is forever immortal. Like and subscribe, because the next chapter of this ancient land is still being written today.